So we're going to go through this today, end of the year stuff. My first slide, I thought this was an important one to point out and to talk about. You don't have to do anything. So end of the year Schoology tips. I know some people are like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? What do I have to do? I don't want to lose this. I don't lose that. You don't really have to do anything. So take a deep breath there. Your courses open and archive with the date of the grading period as dictated by Powerschool. So when the grading period ends, those courses will archive. You can still go back into the archive. You can still find those courses. I can still find assignments from my former students and their grades and stuff on them. Although I had a high school teacher point out this morning, when they finally graduate and move on, the assignments aren't there anymore. But you can go find all that stuff next year. So you don't really have to do anything. Those archive courses are available to you in the future. So let's start by showing you how to get to these archive courses. I'm going to go into my Schoology here, and I'm working on tomorrow's PD a little bit. And I always start by clicking the Muncie Community Schools banner here just to kind of go to the home page to see the same kind of look everybody sees. And as I come in here, I'm going to click Courses. They're my tiled courses, the top 12 courses I'm working with right now. To find my archived, I'm going to click My Courses. When I click My Courses, you're going to see current courses, and I have way too many courses. I'm in lots of your guys' courses and training courses. This is obscene. Way too many courses. But if I click Archived, this is going to take me to my old archived courses. Might take a second again because I have so many. And I noticed the internet was a little slow over here today. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom of this archived, all the way to my STEM 2016, the first Schoology class I ever had, right here. There's the course. I can click section 1, and there it is. It's not pretty. I didn't know what I was doing there. I've learned a lot since then, but this is my archived course. Here's my my stuff, my assignments, my folders, all my things. I can even go to my Chapter 9 Ecosystems and Biomes folder. I can go to my Chapter 9 homework. And there's my photosynthesis assignment right there. So there's the assignment, there's the student's grades on that assignment, all that stuff is still here. Now what's beautiful about this, what's interesting about this is we can take these resources and put them on current classes. So if you forget to do something, if you don't do anything at the end of the year, you can go to last year's classes, you can click a gear, and you can copy this to course. When you click copy to course, it's going to bring up your current courses. You can copy this folder to a current course. So I will tell you, I'm about ready to tell you, don't just let your stuff archive, although that's what I did. I let it archive, and then I went back into my archive and pulled those things out later. So that's where the archive is kind of important. The other cool thing while we're in the archive is that when you're here, you can also go to grade setup. And let's let that pop up here. And at the top, it says copy settings. So if you've made these categories for your class and you're going to use them again next year, and rubrics for your class, maybe you have a writing rubric that you spent some time making and all these things, you can come up here to copy settings. You can select these and then you can copy it to a current course. And again, now I'm in archive. So what you would do at the beginning of the year when the new course pops up, you go to the archive course, copy the settings from that course, boom, click it into your new course, and you're good to go. So there's lots of cases, lots of chances to copy things from previous years. So that's the first thing I want you to understand is that things archive. You don't really have to do anything. However, be proactive, save to resources. So Schoology has a resources section, and you can put your objects, put your folders, put your things into resources. And it's very easy to pull everything out of resources and put it in a new course next year. So you make a week 1 folder, a week 2 folder. Next year, you open up your Schoology course, you copy week 1 folder from your resources to the new course, and you're ready to go again. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to come here to my resources tab. This is my personal resources. If we go to home, mine's not very pretty. It's full of stuff. But everything in here, all these tests I've made, maybe I made a science test from last year, or I got a 4th grade test, whatever it may be, I click the gear, I can add it to a course. It's in my resources, I can now add it to a new course. This is also pretty handy because I like to make stuff, instead of making it in a course, I'll make it right here in resources. You can come right here in the resources and make an assessment, make an assignment, make a link. And what's cool about that is then that copy is already in your resources. So that's why I like doing that. I don't have to track it down later. That's why you see all these little tests. These are things I've made for other teachers. I make them right in my resources. I grab it and I add it to a course, or I copy it to a group, or I move it somewhere else. But your resources are a great way to dump things. Now, let's go back into a course itself. Let's go to Mr. Spradlin's class here. And we can also do that in our course. Rather than waiting for things to archive, we can say, man, that icon right there, that really needs to be on next year's class. We click the gear, we save it to resources. So we save to resources, we copy to course, and that's how that workflow goes. Now, again, we can let things go to archive, but what I like about saving to resources is you're going to cull your things a little bit. You're going to pick and choose. I don't need that anymore. I'm going to improve that next year. I'm going to do this slightly different. So you might make some different decisions. So that's where saving to resources kind of allows you to pick and choose and make that perfect. Now, the other cool thing about our course here, when we add materials like folders and assignments, if you go to the bottom, import from resources. So we can take them from resources, put them into our course. We can come right to the course and pull them from our resources home. And there's those same resources you saw earlier. So that's why resources is so important. Let's take another look a little bit deeper down in here to resources. And something I just kind of figured out this week, actually. I was looking through some of the Schoology stuff, and I knew it existed, but I didn't understand what it was. And once I did, wow, I wish I would have figured it out a long time ago. So you'll notice my resources are kind of jam-packed full of stuff. I even have a folder in here called Old Stuff because it was just filling up. It was hard to find anything. So I kind of put it all in one little folder here, which is not a bad little strategy in Schoology. If you got something that you don't want to get rid of, but you don't want it to show right there, you can dump it all into a folder. But what I found just this week is if you come in here to your resources to add collection, you basically create a whole nother collection, a whole nother section of resources. So if home right here, your resources is a filing cabinet, adding a collection is like adding another filing cabinet. So here's the one I just added yesterday. I didn't know I could do that. So now when those resources get full, I can add a different collection. So when I was teaching, I might have a collection for science and a collection for math. You might have for different subjects, different years. You can make whatever collections you want. The other cool thing about this collection here that I found today is that button right there gives you the ability to share. You click that collection and you can add other people from Munson Community Schools. So we already use groups sometimes to share things, but if you're teaching the same subjects as another teacher and you made a collection called language and you guys are using the same language stuff, you can simply add that person to that collection and they can pull out that collection into their course too. So I thought that was brilliant. That was resources. That was add a collection. All right. So let's come back, make sure I'm on the right track here. I started by talking about archive. We talked about resources a little bit. Saving the resource allows you a little bit of control. You can save the entire course to resource. So let's show you what that looks like. I can come in here to Mr. Spradlin's course, and that's what you saw in my training collection there. You can come to a course, click options, and save the entire course to resources. That will take a few minutes because that's a lot of data, but it will basically dump everything from this course into your resources. That's a good way to make sure it's all in resources too. So if I come back down in this training collection, there's what you'll see. Training course, north side, there's a folder, and it dumped all that stuff in there for me. Now, I put on my agenda, you can save the entire course to resources, but should you? It's kind of up to you. If you have a really nice, well-organized course, you might do that because you can simply grab it and dump it and put it back in a new course next year. However, I kind of like going through, culling some things, picking and choosing, get rid of some things. And really, if you just let something archive, it's saving the entire course anyway. So that's kind of up to you. Other thing I want to point out on here is folders are your friends. They keep things organized and allow you to move many objects at once. So you saw I had that old stuff folder, kept things organized. But if I have a math assignment folder, rather than copying all these math assignments to a new course, I can move the entire folder. If I organize my things by week 1, and I have all the things I have in week 1, I simply save the week 1 folder resources, bring the week 1 folder out of resources, and all the stuff comes with it, because I don't want to sit there and click a billion and one little things. I learned that the hard way with my math homework folder. I was moving stuff in and moving stuff out, and moving stuff all over the place. And finally, that's where you saw my archive class there, where I had chapter 8, chapter 9, and every one of those folders had folders underneath them, and every one of those folders had folders underneath them. So you don't want to get too many folders, too many clicks, make it hard for you and the kids, but you can move the whole folder rather than moving all the little objects inside it. Last thing I want to point out here about resources here is you do have to relink GDAs at the end of the year. Let me explain to you what that is. I just had this conversation with a teacher 10 minutes before this started. So I'm going to come to Mr. Spradlin's class, and I have an assignment in here. And a lot of us are using GDAs, Google Drive assignments. I'll click one here, compare and contrast. My video link is bad. You'll see the blue thing opens. These are the assignments in which we give the kids a Google Doc, and it opens this app. It gives every kid a copy. They can type it and they can send it back. That's really, really, really cool. But that app has to open and do its thing in that course to make it work. So when I go take this assignment here, let's go back and save it to my resources. Let's put it in the training resources so it's not lost. When I save that to my resources, the assignment shell is going to go in there. The description, any rubrics I might attach, all that sort of stuff is going to be here. But when I click it, that Google Drive assignment, that document is no longer linked on there. That's because you have to run that Google Drive assignment in that class to attach it and make it do what it does for the kids. So that's one thing I don't like, but I get why it does it. It's doing a special function in your course with that member list by giving them all a copy. So just be aware of that if you are giving kids Google documents that go along with these assignments. I got two sort of tips I use, I think, to make this a little easier. One thing is I'll come down here to the bottom, and I'll just go ahead and add a link. And so let's say I have a Venn diagram attached to this one. I'll go in here at the end of the year, and I'll go to my Google Drive resource app. And let's go find that Venn diagram, and I'll attach it as a link. It's not the Google Drive assignment that's going to run the assignment for the kids, but I'm going to simply attach this. Oh, I just had it up. There it is. I'm going to simply attach this as a link. And all I'm doing that for is next year when I bring it out of my class and put it in my class, I'll say, oh, yep, there's that Venn diagram. I need to make sure I do the Google Drive thing. I need to make sure I attach that document so all the kids have copies. So that reminds me which document I used. My other trick is I like to name my document the exact same thing as the assignment. So if I have an assignment called Compare and Contrast GDA, I might name my document Compare and Contrast GDA. So the next year I go, man, what's that Venn diagram? What's that document I attached to that? It's the same name as the assignment. So that's just the one thing I wanted you guys to be aware of when you're using Google Drive assignments. That app has to run in the course to do what it does. And so when you park those things in the resources, the assignment's still here. Anything you put in the assignment here, but that link is broken because you're not running that. The app is in a course. You're no longer in a course. All right, moving on. We've talked about saving the resources, folders, Google Drive assignments. Ooh, we've not talked about rubrics. We did talk about moving grade settings, but you can also save rubrics. Here's my narrative writing rubric. I think this is super handy because those rubrics are a little hard to make. They're really nice to use in Schoology, a little hard to make. So I make some of the basic state rubrics, and then I can just copy that to new courses and put that in assignments year after year after year. So I come in here and I can simply add that to course like I would anything else. So I think that's really nifty. How did I do that? How did I get it in the resources to begin with? Let's show you that. I'm going to come in here to my grade setup. In the top right corner is where you're going to find your rubrics. This is where you can make your own rubrics. You can add a new grading scale, a new rubric, and then I've got the little gear next to the rubric where I can copy it to a course or save it to resources. So I think that's useful. I like the rubrics. I don't like making the rubrics. So I like to save them and use them over and over and over again. All right. So what we got here? Be proactive, save the resources. Collections are cool. I kind of already talked about that a little bit. In your resources, you can make new collections that allows you to be even a bigger hoarder, I guess, and have even more things. But it allows you to separate those things and be a little bit more granular and have bins for certain subjects and stuff, and they're shareable. I think that's really, really neat. Next thing I want to point out. So we've kind of talked about end of the year. We said you don't have to do anything. It's going to archive, but you can save the resources. You can organize it in your resources. You can organize it into collections, use folders, all these things. Save your rubrics, bring them back next year. End of the year. So what about summer? Play in the sandbox. Make your own course and try some of this stuff. Put this stuff in. Practice taking it out of this year and put it in next year's course. All the little things we're going to talk about over this whole 9-part series, if you show up to all these, go ahead and try some of this stuff. Play, practice. You can't really break it. These aren't your Powerschool classes. These are courses you created yourself, so you can't break them. It's perfectly fine to play with them. So here's how you do that if you've not already made a sandbox. You come to courses. You click this My Courses menu again, this handy little button that brings you this deeper view of all your courses. And right over here, create a course. It's just that simple. It's not a Powerschool course. Don't try to use it next year. There won't be kids in it. It's not connected to anything. But because it's not connected to anything, you can do what you want. Play with it. And then just like every other course, click the gear, add it to course. And August rolls around and you got this sandbox that you've designed. Click the gear next to a folder, add it to your new course. Give your course a name, give your course a section number, and really the only thing when you're creating a course you want to pay attention to are these grading periods here. As I said, these are all grayed out because these grading periods are over. Courses will archive, courses will open on the grading period dates. So if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you're going to find quarter 4, but quarter 4 is going to go away in May 26th. But right here at the bottom, you're going to find my grading period I made for everyone called Year-Round Sandbox. And right now it's to 2023, and I just keep pushing that date out further. That way it won't go away. So I put specifically in here, no grades. It's not connected to Powerschool, but it's a great place to, it's a great grading period for your sandbox, so it won't archive and it won't go away. Other things to do in the summer, share your resources in groups, share those collections as we talked about. So we've already talked about collections a little bit, and don't forget about groups. I know we've got some good Muncie Community Schools grade level groups already. Put some stuff in there. Share some things with other classmates or teammates. When you come into these groups, let's see what I have in any level digital resources over here. I think I made some stuff back here that I just didn't know which group to put to anyone. Resources. So I've got some I've got some breakouts down here in this group. And I had an 80s movie breakout, really cool. I want to put that in my course. Click the gear, add to course. So it's really nice to, you can share collections, but you can make some groups of teammates, of people that teach the same subject, the same grade level, or whatever, and you guys can share some things too in an informal manner. Now, the other thing I want to point out is if you come to resources, you click group, voila, all your groups pop up. You can go to your group resources right there as well. If I go to courses, Mr. S's class, and we're going to follow this little add materials and import from resources. Now, instead of selecting my personal resources or my training collection, over here I can click group. It's going to bring up all my groups again. And when I'm in that group, it's going to bring up all the resources of that group. So there's 2 and 3 different ways to find these things, but I definitely encourage you to share some of that stuff, whether it be in collections or whether it be in groups. I've got a school last year that one teacher decided she was going to make all the math bell ringers and someone was going to make all the English bell ringers. They made them last year. They're done. And one teacher didn't make them all. They kind of shared. So I think that's really the kind of the cool thing about a digital classroom too, is the fact that as we're making digital things, it does take some time to make them to start off with, but then later the ability to just click and tweak and then click and share with other people. So make sure you share this summer. So I'm right on time where I want to be. I've saved 30 minutes for the last part of this, and that's going to be beginning of the year sort of stuff. I do end of the year, summer, beginning of the year, because last summer we did some Schoology trainings right before school started, and I had someone that said, well, I wish I would have gotten this. I wish I would have done Schoology training long before school started. And I said, well, I hosted some, but she hadn't heard of those sessions. So we got different kind of folks. So there are some folks who they don't want to hear beginning of the year right now. They'll hear beginning of the year in August. But we have some folks that they're still on beach time, and when August rolls around, and they're still thinking school right now. So they want to go ahead and start thinking about how they have to set up for the beginning of the year. So that's kind of why this session is the way it is. End of the year, beginning of the year, getting kind of working all those kinks and gears out to figure out how you want to make your course the best it can be for next year. So without further ado, let's get into beginning of the year. So courses will show up after they're created in PowerSchool and sync to Schoology. So I want to explain this to you, not that you need to know this, but I like to let people know behind the scenes, so you understand a little bit better. I think that's just good for communication. So our Schoology syncs with PowerSchool. So when your courses are created in PowerSchool and kids are enrolled in that, then I have to make grading periods in Schoology and then get with IT, and then we sync the PowerSchool and Schoology, and then voila, all your classes are created in Schoology. So it won't happen the first day of summer. So don't go looking in Schoology for your kids for next year. In fact, last year it was pretty close to right before school started, but I was kind of happy last year because in the past, Schoology courses always opened up on day one of school. If school started August 10th, there's your course on day one, August 10th, because that's what the grading period says. This course is archived until August 10th. As a teacher, I wouldn't have liked that. So what we did last year is I think I got secondary schools out 1 and 2 weeks before school. I think I got elementary out about a week before. I was still waiting on some schedules to be made. I have to wait for schedules to be made at the building, to go into PowerSchool, to go into Schoology, voila. But I tried to get all that out to you about a week or to 2 weeks before school started last year. That way you can start pulling stuff in and decorating that course. And you didn't have to do that day one, because that's not what you want to think about on day one. So that's how that whole process goes. And hopefully we'll have that for you again this year. And one thing I did do last year to help facilitate that was I clicked on a setting called View Upcoming Courses. Elementary teachers probably didn't notice this, but secondary teachers, that their full year is really 2 courses, a semester 1, semester 2. At the beginning of the year, they saw both of them, and they were a little freaked out. And the reason they did that is because the grading period wasn't live yet. So in order to get you your courses, I had to turn on View Upcoming Courses. So I thought that was more important, that you saw your courses and you could go start doing some work rather than waiting for that day to start. So pay attention to that at the beginning of the year. And then if you've made stuff in resources, you've saved stuff in resources, you've put stuff in groups, you've made stuff in your sandbox, when that course pops up, add the materials you've already created to your new course, and then adjust those settings. So that's kind of how that process goes. Some other things I want to talk about beginning of the year is link them up. Linking courses is pretty great. I don't know how much I want to talk about that in this session, because most of the teachers here are elementary teachers, and that doesn't really apply to you. So I'll kind of brush over that. It's in my notes. Directions are in my notes if there's someone who needs to hear that. But linking courses are more, when I taught science, I taught 5 classes of the exact same class. And I had to add the science test to this course and this course and this course and this course. And it got annoying when it was all really the same course. So when it's linking courses and they're the exact same code in PowerSchool, you can make them one big course. And if I put a science test in there, it goes to first period and second period and third period and fourth period. Really, really handy. In elementary, this is handy for your specials teachers. And I know your art teachers, and I think some of your music teachers have already done this, and they've linked them. So instead of having 3 5th grades and 3 4th grades and 3 3rd grades and 3 2nd grades, they have a 5th grade art class with 3 linked sections. So it's very useful for them. So if that's something that's useful to you, we can talk about that later. But I think with the folks we have on here today with elementary, that's not really the case, because you guys have a math and a science and an English and all those courses. So let's just skip over that. Hopefully that doesn't change the time of my presentation too much. Other thing we want to do at the beginning of the year is make the grade, add rubrics or resources like we talked about, copy the grade settings from archive courses like we showed you, make categories for assignments, and then click that PowerSchool button to map those 2 categories. Let's jump into that. So I'm going to come into my course here. I come right to grade setup, and if I've not copied these settings from another course already, I can come in here and I can make new categories, just like you do in Powerschool. Powerschool has its basic categories already, but you can add your own and adjust those. You do the same thing in Schoology. When you make an assignment in Schoology, it has to have a category. So you come in here and make your categories, you can make your rubrics, and then the important thing, and this is on the document I sent out earlier this year, and it'll be on the notes for today too, is if we want that grade book to sync, we got to come down here and click the Powerschool button. So let me show you how that works, and I have to go to a real class to show you that. So I'm going to commandeer my friend Jen's AP Psych class. Why? Because I know it's nice, and I know it alphabetically is the first one that pops up. So there's Jen's AP Psych class. There's her WebEx link. There's her daily agenda. But when you click the Powerschool button, and you'll do this at the beginning of the year, you put your materials in, you can change your course logo. We'll talk about that in tomorrow's PD if you're joining us. You can add your materials, I already said that. You can put your rubrics and your grade settings, but then you simply come down here to Powerschool, click this bad boy right here. It's gonna pop up at some point, and there's all Jen's grades. She's synced. You click configuration, and all you're really doing here is mapping your Schoology categories to your Powerschool categories. So I personally, a little OCD, I named them the exact same thing. So I named them exactly what I wanted them in Powerschool, and I named them the same thing in Schoology, and I matched them. But in this case, Jen has a category in Schoology called in-class assignments, and she's just gone to this drop down and chose in-class assignments to be right next to classwork in Powerschool. So Schoology coursework, in-class assignments, syncs to Powerschool categories. You have to tell it where to go. Once you've done this and save changes, it will sync when you click the sync button, and it'll send them right to Powerschool. All my notes for this session tonight, I'll show you where to find that here in a bit. I've got some other details, some other things to pay attention to make this happen. It actually syncs pretty well. I've got a few people that have had some issues. There's 4 or 5 things you want to pay attention to, but it does sync fairly well, and it's only going to get better. Powerschool bought Schoology, and they're making some changes to make it pretty much the same software. So stay tuned for that. One other thing I want to point out here, though, is this configuration, this little check mark here. I suggest check it. So because originally they weren't the same piece of software, Powerschool, when you make an assignment in Powerschool, as a lot of you have done before, you can only put 50 characters in there. Schoology doesn't care. So I found this out. It was my math teachers. They'd call me and say, hey, this assignment wouldn't sync. And I go, well, which one was it? They go, oh, it was called July 25th, multiplication and division of 2-digit, blah, 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 blah. I go, whoa, stop right there. I know what the problem is. What the problem was, Powerschool wouldn't take it because it was too long. Schoology didn't see the problem, and they just stopped right there. So this button, when you click it, it automatically shortens the titles. So my math teachers, when they label everything very specifically, Monday, July 22nd, multiplication and division problems 14 through, it will shorten that title to go into Powerschool so you won't get a sync error. So all this is in Schoology in your course down here under the Powerschool menu. And you do have to do that for every course. So my secondary teachers like Miss Jensen, she has to do this for her 2nd period and her 7th period. Even though the courses are linked, it's different grade books, so she has to come in. They could have different categories. The same is true of your stuff. Math might be slightly different than English. They might have different categories than science and social studies. So go in the beginning of the year, pop in those courses, configure those, and save those changes. I don't want to jump into her grade book, so let's do this. Actually, I couldn't figure this out this morning. I kind of got stuck. I clicked gradebook on accident this morning, and I almost showed everyone her kids' grades. I didn't want to do that. I go to my gradebook. There shouldn't be anything of substance in here, but this is a different course. There we go. And when you come into the gradebook, once you have it mapped to sync, you'll see these 2 buttons up here. You'll see sync changes to Powerschool, and you'll see the status log of the sync. You do not have to sync everything, and we can talk about, you can look into some of the stuff I'm giving you on grades later. But when you make an assignment, you can choose whether you want it to sync or not. Sometimes we're doing bell ringers. I don't need it to go to Powerschool. I don't need it to tell me there's an error. I just need to put it in Schoology. So you can determine whether something syncs or not. But this is really nice because you can give assignments in Schoology and sync it right to Powerschool, and you don't have to do that additional grading. So I like that. Let's go back to our little agenda here. Parents and students. Ooh, this is a big part of this, something I'd like to see us improve on. So students are added automatically, first of all. Again, it's that Powerschool Schoology sync. So if you get a kid that's not in your class, I get a lot of high school teachers, especially, that will start adding them. They will be taken out every night. I won't do it. The system will do it. Powerschool and Schoology talk at 2 a.m. and it makes everything right. So if you find a kid that's not in your class and they should be, your first order of business is to check Powerschool. They may not be in Powerschool yet. They may be in your classroom, but someone may have not enrolled them in Powerschool yet. And then that Powerschool, it talks overnight to Schoology to put them in those courses. So if you have a student in front of you, they're not there yet. If they're new, give it a day. Actually, I don't care. You can email me and I'll look into it for you. But if they're in Powerschool, uh, and you don't see them in Schoology, call me. I'll fix it. Sometimes there are issues, but that's I do all that back end work. And then even if they're not in Powerschool yet, call me. Sometimes I work on that stuff too. IT's right down the hall, and sometimes I go in and ask questions. Hey, this kid's not in yet. What do we need to do? So I can help you fix all that stuff and try to get that to the right people. So don't just add them, even though it's easy to add a kid. That's not the right kid. That's not going to sync to Powerschool. If it's not coming over from Powerschool, then I need to fix something on the back end. The other thing about this is you click members to find students, get QR codes or parent access codes. So let's do this. I'm going to come in here to members. And when you come into members, we have some things that pop up here. First of all is QR codes. I skipped over that this morning, but I won't this afternoon. This can be kind of handy, although I don't know how many folks still use these, because I know a lot of people are using Google to sign on to Schoology, even on iPads. This is more of an iPad thing, but you can generate a QR code for each kid that they can scan with their iPad. So I think I put some information on that out before, but that's where you find that QR code. The other thing I want to point out here is the parent access codes here. Not this that says access code, parent access code. So when you click this, it's going to download a list of all the kids in your class on a spreadsheet somewhere. Waiting. There it is. On the spreadsheet, and we're going to make this parent access column bigger, and there is the individual access code for each kid. So that is important. If you give that to parents, and there's a guide on the Muncie Community Schools webpage that teaches them how to sign into, and I have a letter that I've shared before that I used to send home when I taught. If you give your kids this access code, the parents can make their account too, and the parents can now follow along in your class. I think Thursday's whole PD is going to be on that. I don't know how I'm going to make that an hour, but we're going to talk about getting parents to follow your class on Thursday. It's cool because they can see grades, but they can also see the actual test. So if you're doing a spelling test in Schoology, rather than just seeing a score, they can go see what Johnny missed. I liked it as a science teacher because science fair was always a kind of a crazy time, and parents were like, oh, I didn't know this and I didn't know that. I put that packet into Schoology. I sent them a letter home too and had them sign, but then I also parked it in Schoology and made sure all my parents were in Schoology, so everything they needed to see was right there. So full transparency. It's nice because when you update and say we're doing this week, parents that are connected will see that. So it's a really cool way to get them to see what's going on in your class. It's view only access. They can't see other students' grades. They can't see other students' posts on discussions. They can see the things that are posted to the school and your class. It's a great way for them to see more than just grades and attendance. So that's that parent access code. The kid only needs it from one teacher. So in the secondary schools, not every teacher has to give them one. I know that doesn't apply to you guys. You pretty much had your same kids all day. So if you hand out those 30 access codes beginning of the year, you should get your 30 parents connected. I taught sixth grade science, so I had 150 kids. Once I connected all my kids, the science or the social studies teacher, the math teacher, the English teacher didn't have to do it. So I picked a day we were working on vocabulary or something the kids were kind of doing on their own. I printed this off. Printed off my little letter. I brought the kids up. I wrote their code. Said, give this to your parents. And I sent them home. And that's what I did while they were working on vocabulary that day. And I did that early on in the year to get those parents involved. And then we'll talk a little bit Thursday about other ways to get parents to want to see that. But I think it's valuable. Parent access codes. I don't think I need anything else from this page. Let's go back to our little agenda. Doing well on time because we have to talk about linking classes. And yeah, we're pretty much there. All right, so let's come back to the top. And I'm kind of going to go through this just a little bit slower. I skipped a big chunk of this when I didn't talk about linking classes. But again, I think that's a waste of your time for elementary. So email me if I need to give you that individually. So again, end of the year, you don't really have to do anything. It's going to go into your archive. You can find it there. However, you might consider putting it in resources that way you can call out things and clean it out a little bit. That is the other thing I wanted to point out. It will archive as dictated by Powerschool. So you may have noticed over Christmas, and this may have not caught your eye as it did the high school teachers, but the grading period technically didn't end until January. And we did that on purpose so that way you could still do grades and grade finals and do things over Christmas break. At the end of the year, though, that day does stop. So when May 26th comes around, actually, I think it gives you 72 hours to 48 hours for archives, but just know you can go back to archive and find that if you need to go find something too, or pull something from another class. But be proactive, save things to resources. Put things in there that you can pull out next year. Use folders so you don't have to keep dragging and moving and clicking add to course 1,000,001 times. I like to put similar things in similar folders. If you are using Google Drive assignments where you're linking that Google Doc using the Google Drive assignment app that behaves like Google Classroom, label that stuff appropriately so you can attach it again next year. You got to click that Google Drive assignment app and you got to attach that document to make it spit out the copies for each kid in that new course next year. New course, new members, new app button. So you need to push that again next year. It's probably the most annoying thing that I have personally with the resources. Collections are cool. Just found out about them. I don't know why I didn't pay attention to them before. I was not always the most organized person digitally, and so I will tell you too, don't ever freak out. My stuff was never very clean and very cool. Every year it got a little bit better and a little bit more organized, and that's the cool thing about digital things is I'm going to make 4 things this year. Well, cool, those 4 things are made. I'm going to tweak them this year and make 2 more things. And you just slowly add to that. So use that collections in there to help you organize and just keep slowly building those digital resources. You don't have to do it all at once. Collections are shareable, which I've not played with yet, but I think that's fantastic. If I've got 2 or 3 teachers, we all teach the same subjects, the same grades, the same building, we're going to share that collection, and we don't have to mess with a group at that point. They can just go to their resources and go to that shared collection. After the school year ends, play in the sandbox. Go on, try new things, organize things, see how things work. I'll tell you one thing. I kind of, as far as summer too, I know Nisha Stout's on here somewhere, but she taught me some things at the end of this summer. She was watching a lot of YouTube videos on how to decorate your course and do different things, and that got me going in looking at some of those things. And so I did a lot of playing this summer too. With those sorts of things. That's tomorrow's session is kind of about, and I was actually watching a YouTube video today on different things to do. So you'd be surprised at how many good YouTube videos there are out there of teachers who will do something a certain way, and you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. So definitely watch those. And Schoology is such a weird platform because it's basic, but it's because it's this basic structure that you can do lots of crazy things with it that you didn't think you could because it just looks like file folders. So definitely play this summer in your sandbox, and then you can copy that stuff to your new course in the fall. Sharing is caring. Share things with your colleagues. Share the things you've made. Share the workload. I'll make math tests. You make English tests. I'm really good at making these. Oh, cool, I'll make these. And then share it amongst the district. That's why I like those district folders too. Because if we've got 6 buildings of 3rd grade teachers and 3 3rd grade teachers in every building, that's a lot of people that can get together and make things, and we don't all have to do the work. So there's lots of good talent out there, and so let's kind of a rising tide raises all ships. So sharing is caring. Beginning of the school year, Happy New Year. The courses will show up after I've created them. As long as everything goes fine over here at IT, I'll have that to you a week to 2 weeks ahead of time so you can start getting your right courses in there and seeing the kids and do those things. View upcoming courses will be on. I don't know if that'll affect you guys, but that's how you'll be able to see them. And then you just add those materials to your new courses. link them up. We skip this entirely, so I'm going to move on. Make the grade. Go ahead and add your rubrics that you've saved, add your grade settings, your categories, and then go into that Powerschool button and map those categories. Tell it what category in Schoology matches to what category in Powerschool, so that will do that grading for you. Trust me, you'll like that, especially if you use some of the assessments in Schoology that will grade some things for you. Now, between you and I don't believe in everything grading for me. There's certain things where I want meaningful activities. A lot of things I want hands-on activities, but there are certain things too that just need to be done. And if I can automate those, I automate those so I can spend the time on the more meaningful activities, in my opinion. Parents and students will be added automatically. If not, give me a call. I'll fix it for you. Click members, get the QR codes. I can give you a copy of my parent letter. It's just not very good because it's from 2016. The whole paragraph would need to be changed. But all I did was just say, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's your access code. And then I have a screenshot of how they make a whatchamacallit, an account. And you can find that on our Monthly Community Schools page too. Thursday, we'll talk a little bit more about that. I think that's important too, just to be honest. I know I'm getting into some of Thursday's content, but we don't all use this the same. Someone might use spelling tests, someone might not. Someone might be doing daily work on Schoology, someone might not. So just like we give expectations in the classroom and tell parents in our beginning of the year letters, we're going to be doing this, we're going to be doing this, we're going to be doing this. I think it's important to tell them what we're doing and how we're doing digitally too, because you don't want a parent to see a grade report and go, man, what are these bell ringers? I've never even seen one of these, and they're all on Schoology. So I think that's important to make that part of your digital, your classroom expectations. All right, so we're doing wonderful on time, which means I can answer some questions too. But here's my email. And before we go, I do want to show you what I was talking about with the session notes. So this document right here is the notes from this session I put on my Schoology page. It's pretty much what I'm reading off my other screen. End of the year, I went ahead and typed up some of the stuff I've said. All this stuff is linked to either Schoology or a document that I've made. So if you're like, oh, I know we talked about it. What was that again? How do you do that again? You can click these things on here and it will show you that. If you come down here at the bottom, I even linking courses if that's something that you're interested in. You can look into that. The setting up the Powerschool sync. I have 3 separate presentations I've made in here. And I've got all kinds of other resources. So you'll find that if you go to Schoology and you go to courses and my course page, which you should all be members of, Instructional Technology Corner. I've got lots of cool things on here. And we'll show you how to do this sort of little Bitmoji dashboard tomorrow. But right here at PD session notes, when you click that, I'm going to put the notes for every PD session of this whole 9-part series. That way you can go back and see the links, go back and see the stuff you need, go back and say, hey, he went too fast. What did he say there? And to be honest, if there's a session that you don't really think you need, you can still come in here and look at the notes, and you may not have to attend it. You may look at the notes and say, yep, that's all I need. So that's this session.